Do you have a brilliant startup idea but are stuck in the launching phase? Are you feeling overwhelmed by funding, marketing, or just where to start? Don't let your startup idea stay grounded. Visit our website at eapla.com to schedule a Blue Couch meeting and launch your startup journey today.
Welcome back to On The Cusp. Matt Snyder, my co-host, is back with me for another episode. But this is really an exciting episode because we've got Malcolm Murchison with us. I think, Malcolm, you're our first attorney on The Cusp.
Yeah.
And, you know, we focus a lot on entrepreneurs and startup companies, but you actually are one of the founders of your law firm.
That's correct.
So you are an entrepreneur that started in a firm and it's grown significantly. So you built a business in Shreveport from the ground up. So you got a lot, you know, you've seen a lot of change in that.
Yeah, our firm actually has got 3 offices, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. We were a part of a larger firm that had a New Orleans office and a Shreveport office. And in the course of the 9 years we were members of that firm from Shreveport, we attached an affinity to certain partners in the New Orleans office for whom we all became agents of change, and we were not successful in instituting the change within the firm we were with. And so we decided we can do this better on our own. My joke is necessity is the mother of invention, and we decided we could be happier doing it our way instead of doing it the way that the firm did it. And so we left. And then after that, we grew, and then we opened a Baton Rouge office because we had so many clients in Baton Rouge for whom we did either lobbying work, regulatory administrative law work, that it just became more efficient for us to have a presence there. And we talked Jerry Jones into relocating to Baton Rouge, and he opened that office.
That's awesome.
And it's grown quite a bit.
What I really wanted to have you on and talk about is about your involvement in the community and being a player in this community for many years, and just talk about what we like to, I mean, this podcast is called On The Cusp. Dave and I believe that Shreveport-Bossier, our area, has a ton of potential. And we feel like we're on the cusp of something great. And I always love conversations with people that have been in the game for a long time. My grandfather and I spent years and years working for my grandfather, having that conversation every day of my life. And I still look for opportunities to have that conversation of like, where are we? Where were we? And like, how do we get to where we all want to kind of go?
I have been, fortunately, able to be involved in both the Chamber of Commerce, the Tourist and Convention Bureau.
That's where we met.
Yeah.
They're trying to throw me off, and they tried to get you, and we became friends.
Yeah.
That's where we became friends.
The rules were the rules, you know. You once you understood them, you understood.
Yeah, and I didn't get thrown off, Malcolm.
And the Chamber of Commerce was something I was involved in for a long time, and I can remember when the outer loop was a 2-lane road through the forest.
No way.
And I got involved with what the Chamber had then was the Transportation Committee. I got to lobby, go to New Orleans and Baton Rouge and lobby for funds to build the highway system that we enjoy. We knew the port was coming, just to be able to service the port. We knew I-49 was coming. It was before I-49 was built. And so the fact that you can get around Shreveport-Bossier a lot quicker than any place else in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, we tell people all the time, you can be anywhere you want to be in 15 minutes.
And that's not an accident.
And that's not by an accident.
That's because of the people for whom I was, quote, working with, but I was working for them. The John Carruthers, Mr. Leonard Silber, Arnold Lincove. Those were the guys who were drawing circles on the map.
Right.
Saying, you know, this needs to be here. You guys go talk to them and figure out how to make it happen. And so, you know, people just don't know how blessed we are. We're sitting under trees, the acorns of which were planted by people before I came along, you know.
Right.
And so things are available and happening, and the growth is happening where it is because of those kind of thoughtful decisions. And that's still continuing to happen. The Chamber, the Committee of 100, the North Louisiana Economic Development Partnership, the BRF, are all working in a proactive fashion. I'll tell you a funny story. One of the BRS initiatives, Shreveport Next, is designed to go out and recruit and find businesses that can be relocated. We can bring our own corporate headquarters to Shreveport-Bossier. That was my idea when I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I kept telling our economic development guys to go out and do it, but you had to have capital to be able to, what you wanted to find was the family that owned a very prosperous business in small town Ohio. The family all lives in Carmel, California now because they are very wealthy, have no affinity for the community where the business is located, and you can go offer them a bunch of money, acquire their company, and relocate the headquarters. You don't have to move the factory, but just the administrative body.
Yep.
And then it can be kind of like the Green Bay Packers, a corporately owned by the community entity.
And we've done that twice now.
Now, that's right.
With
Omicron and
Omicron and Multipack, which we moved here and then it got acquired. A lot of people don't even realize by a local.
That's awesome.
Okay, and that's 150 jobs. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
there's no way to move it. So, thanks to your, foresight.
Well, my joke is that I couldn't do it. BRF was able to do it, and because it had the resources available and the drive to do it. And the problem with a chamber volunteer is you're there for a year. Right. You're gone. The next guy behind you's got his own set of initiatives.
Yeah.
About.
How do we get more out of those organizations like the chamber?
It's a struggle. If you go talk to them, they're working hard and they're doing a lot of things that are kind of not reported in the news because it's not very exciting to know that they hired a consultant that went out and located these 7 prospects, of one of which took a location in Shreve Industrial Park. That's just not big news. It's 7 jobs.
Right.
But those are, it's incremental. One of the things we always worried about is we're not in different boats, Shreveport and Bossier, we're in the same boat. Once people started realizing that, things.
Dude, the traffic changes in Bossier, the new driving around Bossier, I used to not take clients in Bossier because it was so hard for me to fit it in my time. It would eat me up.
Yeah.
And so I have 3 clients right now in Bossier, and it's easier than some of my Shreveport clients with these new roads.
People are surprised to discover that overpass over the railroad that goes back around Shed Road.
Oh,
I guess
unbelievable.
Past McElroy's,
Yeah, past McElroy Metals. And once you discover that, suddenly you can get anywhere in Bossier quick.
Right. I mean, these new things with the roundabout, Spitio and Benton Road,
and
that's unbelievable.
And that didn't happen overnight either.
Right.
That was a long-term planned project by the city of Bossier.
Okay, cool. So I'm feeling a theme coming. Okay, so these things don't happen overnight. There's a passing of the torch that's always happening of the old guard and whoever's going to take it. What position are we in? I mean, I looked at some numbers lately about population of Shreveport and Bossier, and what position are we in to hand that torch, and how do we really, where do we go from here?
Well, that's a good question. In a sense, things are happening that I'm not aware of. And I'll use there's a young attorney, Rich Lamb, who's very involved in the community, and he's doing things that I'm not completely aware of, but they're very positive for the community and attracting folks. And I think it takes some initiative of a person to give up time from their business and from their family and become more involved in these kind of things. You mentioned I've been involved, and I started thinking, I was in the Highland Restoration Association, the Highland Area Partnership, Habitat for Humanity, all of which were just things that I saw as they were doing something effective. I'd be involved with it. And people just have to realize they need to, instead of saying, somebody needs to take care of that, they need to ask the question, who can take care of that, and can I go help them do that?
And most of the time, if you look in the mirror, you're the person that has to go do it. That's the key.
Yeah,
right there.
Send me.
Because I'm on the chamber board right now, the Greater Shreveport Chamber Board, and I did it because I felt like, well, I have something to contribute. I can help them deliver for the community and small businesses. You can't be a guy out there launching businesses every day in Shreveport if you're not part of the organization that's going to help them grow. So I said, I have to be part of that. And Tim is, a great guy to work with, and I enjoy being part of that. And you've successfully done that in multiple places.
Yeah, and I'm still involved with them in a way, but at some point you need to say, okay, someone else wants to do this. I wouldn't do it that way.
Right.
But their way's not bad.
Right,
It's
right.
just not the way I would do it.
Right.
And you need to learn to say, okay, I'm going to sit back and support that person rather than saying, we've never done that before.
That's the key.
I think
that's
a
what
great point.
that's what I felt like me and you with the Tourism Bureau thing came to. It was like, hey, I understand this, but we're not against each other.
Right.
Let's figure this thing out because we're both wanting to ride this road we both want the community to be better. We may not see it the same way. I mean, but
Right.
we're both trying to get to the same way. And I think when people stop and realize that in our community and stop fighting against each other,
Yep.
then we're okay.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be negative. It's very easy to be negative. I mean, and I think we're the hardest on ourselves. There are people in our community that are quick to criticize, but you don't see them involved someplace. And we're really hard. And I think if we made a conscious effort to go, well, be positive, okay? Be the coffee bean.
So we've said
right?
that a lot. And I've got a new thing. I'm not going to say that we're not hard on ourselves. And I'm not going to say any of that. But I also don't want to see us go too far and get too soft on ourselves. It is the coffee bean thing. I think Shreveport's made huge moves in the last 5 years to stop beating ourselves up as much. I don't see that happening at Eastridge at the lunch table as much as I used to. Just a group of guys sitting around just talking about how bad Shreveport is. But what the other flip side of that is, okay, great. We're not going to beat up Shreveport. We're going to say we love Shreveport, all that. We're going to promote Shreveport. We got to do something to keep pushing it forward, though. We can't just love it quietly.
Right.
You know?
I've heard y'all say that, and you guys don't know how much I appreciate your podcast. It's on my Apple Podcast list. When I drive to and from Baton Rouge, I'm listening to episodes.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
You know,
you.
I catch up on them, and I listen to the snake guy.
Oh, man.
Yesterday.
Yeah. I'm still recovering.
I know. I heard you dove out the chair.
He did.
But it's exactly that. People have gotten better. My assessment too is that
That's good to
they
hear.
appreciate Shreveport, and you know, people say, "What's there to do about Shreveport?" And I'm talking to young attorneys we're trying to recruit to Shreveport, and believe me, our worst enemy is our own people. You know, and when I was in the chamber, someone asked me, "You're in economic development. Why do you think it's important for Shreveport to do it?" And I said, "Well, Shreveport has always been something that the old Commercial National Bank called itself the capital of the Ark-La-Tex." And when I was recruiting prospects to Shreveport-Bossier, they'd say to me, "What's the worst thing about being in Shreveport?" And I said, "Last name." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Louisiana." I said, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, we're 10th in this, we're 50th in this. You know, we're the numbers for Louisiana aren't bad, but when you take the geographic area of East Texas, Northwest Louisiana, Southwest Arkansas, and those communities, suddenly you realize that's an SMSA. There's more than 2 million people sitting there.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
from Shreveport, you can reach more people on a one-day truck haul
Yep.
than you can anywhere else in the United States. So suddenly, that sense of being the capital of the Ark-La-Tex, and if you walk in the old Regents Tower building, if you look at the mosaic on the floor, the big atrium, it's a map of that area with a big star at Shreveport, capital. So, you know, what I always wanted the chamber, which I never could convince everybody to do, make our motto the capital of the Ark-La-Tex.
Yeah, that's good.
Because it would be
I like
easier to
that.
sell as to what area are we bringing you
And
to.
a lot of people don't realize that the way they draw the lines, the federal lines, is what,
And it goes
in
to,
developing the MSAs.
and it stops at the state line.
That's right, stops as a state line. And in our case, there's Texas and Arkansas, and that cuts what we really are in half because we're so much bigger.
Right. And I'm licensed in Texas to practice law because we're only 18 miles from the Texas border. If you
Yeah.
read any of the history of Texas, you know, the yellow fever epidemic, the people of Texas had guards on the Greenwood Road to stop people from leaving Shreveport to come into Texas.
Wow.
That's how, you know, how much we affect the lives of the people in Texas and vice versa. We're not.
That's an
We're not
underutilized thing. My shopping event, Tinsel, at the Christmas season, I think we had 600 shoppers last year, and 180 of them were from Texas.
Yeah.
And that's because we're promoting it. Like, that needs to be pushed more. Those people, I mean, I spend a lot of time with clients in Tyler. Dude, we kill Tyler in shopping, dining. Like, we have way better things than Tyler does in those areas.
Matt, you need to look at the demographics of the water park. You know, Lee Hovish, guy came in, bought that.
Yeah.
Put a lot of time and effort into that, reopened it. Right now, okay, when you go over there, half of the people at that park probably are from Texas.
Wow.
Right. It's,
Okay,
And-
so they're coming there.
I was in West Yellowstone, you know, on the edge of Yellowstone National Park, walked into a restaurant, the lady was serving us. She turns to me and says, "What part of Texas are you from?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Your accent." I said, "Well, I'm from Shreveport." She says, "I'm from Texarkana. Take me home." And I said, "Wait, you're in this beautiful place? You know, the climate's great." She says, "That's 3 months out of the year." She says, "The only shopping place is a Sears catalog store." There's no Sears catalog stores anymore. And it's Amazon.
Yeah.
And nothing, everything shuts down once the tourist season's over, except for the snowmobilers. But she identified as being from Shreveport, even though she grew up in East Texas.
Right.
Yes.
And she wanted to go home.
Yeah, my wife and I, our whole life, you know, being in the military for 26 years, you know, people ask us, "Where are you from?" We say, "Oh, we're from Shreveport," because everybody knew where Shreveport was at.
Yeah, you had to.
You had to, okay? And we always struggled with kind of what you were talking about. Oh, man, you're 50th in this and you're 49th in that. And
But the Caddo Bossier school systems are not 50th.
they're not.
You know,
Absolutely.
put them in the national rankings, they're suddenly 32nd or
It was
20th.
never been that way.
Right. And-
okay? But that's all they see.
Yeah. And so I think people need to be more positive, and then they need to start realizing our last name doesn't define who we are. We're Shreveport-Bossier. You know, we're the Ark-La-Tex. We're Tyler. We're Longview. We're Texarkana.
Or Marshall.
We're
I think
Marshall.
they need to start being positive and then do something about it.
And yeah, I agree with you.
Like, now get off the Eastridge table and then put some money behind something or some effort behind something and let's go.
And maybe you ought to take, you know, when you hear someone say this is a problem, ask them, well, okay, what's the solution?
Right.
And then the next question is, well, how can you help that happen?
Right.
You know, if you can identify a solution, why don't we go out and try to save it?
You know, I'm really proud that I'm part of the BRF, and there are so many people in the BRF. Not only do we work for the BRF, but every one of them have a volunteer position with something, or they are doing something. People like Brett Brown, you know, who's part of the authority, what is it, the funding authority, and then Julie's part of the Caddo Industrial Board.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and more people need to say, I've got to step beyond my vocation and extend my skills to some group that can help.
Right.
I'm on the BRF board, and I've always been amazed every time we bring in a new board member, how much they suddenly say, I didn't realize how much BRF was effective. And,
and you've been with us, you know, since I've been here, and I've been here now. July makes 12 years, and I remember I came in, we were, you know, in the middle of the hospital development and that. And
that was 3 years in which I had Hospital Wednesday.
Yes, absolutely. Every
Wednesday we met
Wednesday
with the hospital administrators.
And that was, and you know what? That was incredibly successful. Oshner's is now here operating that facility.
I mean, that's a huge example of local people saying, we understand this is what you think's about to happen, but we're not going to allow it, and standing up and doing what's right for our community.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it required effort and sacrifice by the folks that were involved in making sure the hospital stayed open as a community hospital, and that it grew and got better. And then, you know, we were able to market it successfully to Oshner with the encouragement of Governor Edwards. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look at where it's at now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great example.
That is a huge example of success.
So I agree with you. I want people to step up and say, okay, I see the problem. I know a solution. I can find a group that can implement that solution or work on it. Maybe we'll come up with a better one. And then they got to get up, walk over there and say, okay, here I am.
Yeah.
How can I help?
And I'm gonna say, you don't have to have the group. You can be.
It's easier to have a group, but you can be the.
You don't have to go to the big nonprofit. You don't have to go to the
I'm
big
talking about
whatever.
finding a small group like the
There's a lot
Highland
that, I mean, Dr. George called me, I don't know, a month and a half ago and said, there's a falling down fence on the side of the ditch and he's caused enough stir in about 8 hours that broken down fence was down by that evening. It was just by him getting tired of looking at it.
And I was thinking when y'all were talking about BRF staff's involvement in the community and just people throughout the community being willing to do that. The identification that the gateway into Shreveport from Monkhouse Drive to downtown needs to be addressed.
Yep.
And that's an important initiative that the cities agreed to, BRF's agreed to work on, other groups have agreed to work on. And I started thinking about it. Wherever you go to Baton Rouge and you get off the plane, if you're able to fly into Baton Rouge Airport and drive downtown, you drive through an industrial complex similar to what you drive through along from Monkhouse into town to a certain extent. And people need to pay attention to that because that's the only part of Shreveport a lot of visitors ever see. They don't see South Highlands, they don't see Southern Trace, they don't see the subdivisions of North Bossier or South Bossier.
They do not.
And because they're not along the interstate. And so they come along saying, the landmark that every travel guide told you to stop at was the Lucky Palace, which had a wonderful wine accessory, but was in the worst part of.
But also had two guys stabbing each other and doing drugs in the parking lot when you pulled in. It was a terrible place. It was a terrible place to send a tourist.
I got to give the airport authority a shout out, okay, and everything they're doing over at the airport. Adding 300 parking spaces and what they've done inside the airport is incredible.
The airport, the biggest, I used to complain, just like the same thing about Monkhouse. I used to sit in there and drink that terrible coffee and look around that airport and be like, we have to do better. The airport today is so nice and looks great and represents our community well with local brands.
And again, they've
done a great job.
They've done a similar thing with the airport in Baton Rouge, but again, once you get in your rent car and drive downtown, you kind of say, well, that's a big refinery.
Yep.
That's what Baton Rouge.
Right.
Until you hit the state capitol, it's very attractive.
Right.
Yeah.
But Shreveport's got that same issue, but someone said we need to address work on that. The airport's worked on it.
My route to the airport's beautiful, Malcolm. I just need to get I need to fix the map. I drive in from 3132, look at all the airplanes in the airport, turn into the driveway, and it's beautiful. There's great ways to get to the Shreveport Airport where it looks great. A lot of success out there.
Well, so I think y'all said it. We've got all the components for someone to sit up and say, why locate in a metropolitan area like Houston or Dallas, where the employees are an hour and a half from their home, when they can locate in Shreveport-Bossier and everybody be 15 minutes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's key.
For lunch.
And you're going to get double the amount of house.
At least. My house is, one of those old South Highland two-story white columns houses, and my friends see the picture and say, that house where I live in Denver would be $3 million.
Yep.
Yeah. And I said, take a tenth of that.
One of the guys at Multipack who sold his house in California to move here, to be part of Multipack, he was like amazed at how much house he could get.
I mean, that's so real. I mean,
it is.
I've been talking to this guy that I work with. We do Zooms every week, and he's in California, and him and his wife, 2 babies, renting, can't own a home. I was like, Mario, look at Zillow in Shreveport, Louisiana. He called me back. He said, that can't be real.
Yeah. It's the same thing in Austin and Fayetteville. I have family live both places. Yep. If you're living in central Austin where you can enjoy being 15 minutes from school, work, and everything else, a 3,000 square foot ranch house is going to be over $1 million.
Absolutely.
I've noticed that too, as I've gotten older and the ability to travel from Shreveport, it's an easy place to travel from. And if you're not spending all your money on your house, you can travel really nice. I know that my travel is probably much nicer than the guy making the same amount of money in Austin because he's having to use so much more of his money to live in Austin.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
I'm trying to convince one of my daughters of that. She's getting recruited to go to Denver for a job in Denver, and I'm going, man, money's going to go a lot further in Shreveport than it is in Denver.
For sure.
Going to Denver. Well, hey, Malcolm, this has been great.
Well, thanks
for
enjoyed
coming.
It.
I want to
Flattered
finish
that you asked
with,
me to visit with y'all.
I want to finish with, I'm excited that Louisiana Tech is moving to the Sun Belt. Okay.
So am I. That's a great move. I got my Tech blue shirt on.
I know you did. You did. I should have wore some ULM maroon, for this, because hopefully what'll happen is we'll end up with a state fair game with Louisiana Tech playing ULM.
I grew up with the Tech Northwestern game. I saw Terry Bradshaw throw a 70-yard touchdown pass to Tommy Spinks sprinting down the sideline. My very first Tech game. He got called back for holding, so now we're on the 7-yard line. And guess what they did? They ran the same play, touchdown again. And that sealed me on being a Tech football fan. So,
thank you for coming.
Thank y'all.
Oh,
Glad to be here.
Malcolm.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Enjoy the podcast? We would love your feedback about today's show and who you think should be our next guest. Send us an email at info@eapla.com. Also, be sure to share the show and leave a comment on our social media post.